Amen. To God be the glory for all the things that he has done in my life. I thank God for every chance that he sees to use this old vessel of mine. I thank him for it. To our pastor, Dr. Samuel Jackson Gilbert II, even in his absence, I still want to salute our pastor. I was thinking, I said, you know what? I met Pastor Gilbert. I even shook his hand back when I was in school during my Baylor days. And I don't even think he remembers. I just shook his hand because he was up there because his friend was my pastor at the time, Delvin Atchison, and he brought him up there, and I just shook his hand, and I said, man, that's a mean guy. And he didn't say much to me, but I remember shaking his hand one time. And sure enough, who would have thought that that guy who I said, that's a mean guy with that beard, would be the most loving pastor that I've ever had. I salute him. Yes. And to our sage, Pastor Emeritus, who was celebrating his birthday yesterday and still preaching. I thank God for him as well. Mountain Church, you all look good today. I wish I would have worn my African attire. Y'all looking nice. And to our youth ministry who set us on fire today. Yeah, can we give it up for our youth? Yeah. It's always good on Youth Sundays. I walked in this morning and one of the youth was like, you look like a sour apple. I was like, thank you. I love our youth. They always they keep me young. God bless the children. The family, is good to see you all smiling faces here. Yeah, I see you. At the back, I see y'all sprinkled around. And to the best home court advantage, Mount Sinai Church. Yeah. I thank y'all for your prayers and friends and loved ones here. There is a word from the Lord on today. And if you will look with me in the book of Genesis, Genesis chapter 25. Genesis chapter 25. We'll begin reading at verse 24. We'll conclude at verse 34. If you have it, please say amen. All right. And it reads, when the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So he named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up. Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. That is why they called him Edom. Jacob replied, first, sell me your birthright. Look, I'm about to die, Esau said. What good is his birthright to me? But Jacob said, swear to me first. So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank and got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. I like to work with the caption today. Tempted by temporary. Tempted by temporary. Amen. It was invented somewhere around World War II. It was invented actually by accident. A self-taught engineer named Percy LeBaron Spencer was experimenting with magnetron waves. As he was experimenting with these magnetron waves, he had a chocolate candy bar in his pocket. And while playing around with these magnetron waves and having this chocolate candy bar in his pocket, he noticed something interesting. The chocolate in his pocket, while he was running his test, started to melt. As the chocolate in his pocket started to melt, it caught his attention that he would try this experiment a second time. He would then try it with an egg and notice that the egg began to combust and explode. And then he did it again with some pieces of corn kernels. And notice that they too had a reaction under these magnetron waves. So Percy LeBaron Spencer had discovered something, that food emitted under low-density magnetron waves surrounded by an encased built piece of metal that he discovered and built himself, created something unique. It was called the microwave. Percy LeBaron Spencer invented the microwave. He found it a quicker way of getting people what they wanted quicker, faster, and it's more expedient than the conventional oven. Now, this was a pretty lifetime invention that he created. It did something. It gave you what you wanted: food faster, quicker, easier, without all the prep time, without all the thawing out, without all the weight that it took of the conventional oven. Now, it's one thing to have microwave food, but Percy LeBaron did not know that his invention would lead us toward a microwave generation, where everything that we have has to come quicker, easier, faster, and that which we prioritize is that which comes the quickest, easiest, and fastest. And that which we disdain and we don't use is that which is long, takes a while, requires preparation, thawing out, seasoning, marinating. He did not know that he would yield his invention toward a microwave culture. That we would start to disdain, that everything that took a while, that took long, that required preparation, would now be looked at as outdated. You ever notice people don't wait for anything anymore? Everything must come now, fast, quick, easy, instantly. And a problem with that is usually things that come easily seem to go easy too. It's produced a culture, a mindset that's so fixed on that which come easy and goes easy, that it's a culture that's so enamored that values that which is temporary and disdains that which is permanent. This invention, you ever notice that people don't wait for dial-up internet anymore? When's the last time you waited for your internet to connect? Those 3 AOL boxes, dialing, attempting, all that for you to connect to the internet. Now you connect the internet without doing a thing, just by Wi-Fi. When's the last time people put out there and iron their clothes for the entire week? People don't do that no more because everything is faster, quicker. When's the last meal you made from scratch? We become a microwave generation that prioritize everything quicker, faster, quicker, all in the now. It's produced a culture that thrives on that which comes easy and goes easy, a culture of temporary. There's no one in our biblical canon that epitomizes a microwave mindset more than that of Esau. Esau was so focused, so fixed on that which was temporary. If you would read the opening of our passage, we start off reading today an introduction to two twin boys. These two twins who are twins in age but so distinct in their personalities. Isaac is the father of these boys, and we introduce to the first of them. The firstborn is known as Esau. And they tell us in verse 24 that when he came out that he was red and hairy. Red and hairy from birth. And then the second to come out, they say Esau was like a garment, like a piece of wool, a coat, as a baby born hairy from the start and red. So they named him Esau, which meant hairy. Then the second twin child that came out right after Esau was grasping the heel of his older brother. So they named him a name which means heel grabber, trickster, Jacob. These two twin boys, I tell you that they have two distinct characteristics. And Esau represents a microwave generation. And I got Bible on my side to add to this. For God would tell Rebekah while they were jumbling around in her stomach that in your stomach is not just two twin babies, but there's two nations warring with each other. Two different people groups at work, at play. So I feel a little more justified in saying that Esau is not just a person, but he represents a generation of people who all live in the now. Got to have things quicker, faster. Look at how we are introduced to their characters. The first, and it says in verse 26, after this, the brother's name was Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old, and then the boys grew up. And Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, he loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. We're now introduced to two distincts of their personalities. Esau was a man of the country, of the open field, while Jacob was an inside boy. He stayed inside amongst the tents. Isaac loved Esau, but Jacob was a mama's boy. We all have those children that have different characteristics. That some fathers say, I like that one because he reminds me of me. And some mothers say, oh, that's my boy right there. Isaac loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Look at how these scenes and the background comes into play. For the situation comes in just like this. Once, verse 29, Jacob was cooking some stew, and Esau came in from the open country, famished. Now, in this message, tempted by temporary, let me drop a footnote here, that the first rule in dealing with temptation If we're not careful, we can be just like Esau. We can be tempted by that which is temporary. The first rule in dealing with temptation is simply this: beware of your surroundings. Scripture tells us this, that Esau, who was an outdoorsman, a huntsman, he left the outdoors, and where did he come? He came inside. Now, Esau, who was a man who was known for being the quiet huntsman, he was ready for an attack by animals. It could fight wild beasts all day, but the temptation does not try to get at him then. It comes at him when he leaves the place where he's most strongest. Esau becomes tempted when he leaves the outdoor domain and he comes inside. Not only did he come inside, but it says that he was famished. He was tired. And the second rule in knowing and dealing with temptation is know your weaknesses. First rule, beware of your surroundings. There are certain surroundings that can lead to you being more vulnerable. There's certain environments, certain company that you find yourself in that can lead you to let your guard down, and you can be more vulnerable to temptation because of the setting that you place yourself in. Be careful of your surroundings. But then secondly, beware of your weaknesses. Be careful. Know how you are when you get tired, when you become famished, when you're lonely, when you're even hungry. Be careful to make decisions during this time of weakness. Know how you operate when you're not feeling at your best. And that might be the best time not to make a decision because you are tired, you're weak, you're hungry. When you're lonely, because you are not you when you're hungry. Know your weaknesses. Know how you behave when you're tired. That might be the exact moment that's set up for temptation. And it reads that once he came in from the open country, famished, and he said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew, for I am famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Now, if you notice something unique about verse 30, it's in parentheses. That's why you should read the Bible very closely. Because if you read too fast, you might skip over something. Scripture, every word there is God breathed. That means it's all profitable for you. It's meant for your instruction. If you read too fast, you'll miss it. It says that is why they called him Edom. And Edom means red. Do we notice something else about the character of Esau? That he was born, and one of the things they said about him, he was hairy and he was red. And what do you know? In verse 30, that person who was hairy and red comes in saying, "Give me some of that red stew." If you would read it in his Hebrew, it says Esau is clamoring around, yelling, saying, "Give me that red stuff, red stuff." And that's why they, parentheses it, that's why they called him Edom. We learn something about Esau in this very verse 30. That everything about Esau was in his external. That is, everything about Esau could be summed up in the surface. Everything about him could be, you could know everything about Esau just by his physical. There was nothing more to Esau than what you saw. And what you saw is what you got. Every time you read about Esau, he's behaving, acting just like he looks. Have you ever met somebody like that? Where what you see is what you get. I told you we're in a microwave generation. And I'm convinced that one of the characteristics of a microwave generation is an overemphasis on that which is external. We place so much emphasis on that which is physical. Everything is valuable. We measure things by their worth, by how they add to our physical well-being. And maybe that's why our relationships are so shallow and hollow. Because everything is so predicted and weighed and measured and valued by that which is physical. You talk to people and they get excited about meeting so-and-so and having these relationships. They say, oh, so-and-so, he's tall. Oh, she's fine. Oh, he has a nice haircut. He had a beard. He smelled good. Wore nice shoes. Everything based on the physical. And maybe that's why our relationships are so temporal. You base everything on the physical. You can write one word on top of all that: temporary. You talk to any couple that's been married a long time, any couple that has a permanent relationship, go look at their wedding photos. You don't look nothing like you did on those wedding photos. We place so much emphasis. If they posted a photo right now, you would say, who is that? Any couple that made it long-term, permanent, would know that all that which is physical, oh, she's fine, temporary. She looks good, temporary. He got a six-pack, temporary, looks fade. All that emphasis on the external is all temporary. He got a good job, temporary. Layoffs are real. Downsizing are real. But she cute, temporary, looks fade. Nice body, temporary, things stretch out. Everything. All that emphasis on the temporary. Even talking to people, they say, man, let me hook you up. Man, let me so-and-so get her. Go get her. I say, man, listen, man. That's all good for a rental. But I'm looking to buy. There's different qualities that you look for in a rental versus the one that you want to buy. When you looking to buy, you ask different questions. How's the engine? What's under the hood? Does she get good gas mileage? Is it reliable? Can I get to work in it? Can I work? Does it acquire interest? How is it from year to year? Does it retain their value? What's underneath the hood? I ain't worried about the color, how fast it go. Does it work good on a highway? When I'm going to work and coming home from work, how does it work then? When you looking to buy, you ask different questions. How's her character? What type of spirit she got? How's his walk with the Lord? What's his spirit is? Character is permanent. That all that other stuff is temporary. It ain't built to last. It ain't gonna last long, I'm telling you. Stop focusing on that, which is temporary. Everything about Esau could be summed up in his external. And you know what else he said? I'm going to the next verse right now. It says, once he was cooking some stew, and he said this to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished. And Jacob replied, first, sell me your birthright. And verse 32 says this. Esau said, look, I'm about to die. Esau said, what good is this birthright to me? And if you caught what I caught in verse 32, you notice something else that connects Esau to this microwave generation. That Esau is constantly living in the now. Everything about Esau is in the moment. Always, he says that, listen, I'm hungry. So he reacts in the moment. He came in the field tired, but he stretches his tire to, I'm about to die. You ever talk to somebody who is always reacting in the now? Ain't nothing consistent about them. Some days they're up, some days they're down. They're always reacting in a moment. If they get something good today, they're happy for today, and tomorrow they say, they always reacting in the now. And that's Esau for us. Always reacting, always living in the moment. And that's the culture that we have produced today. Always living in the moment. When things are happening to them, they're happy. But when things aren't happening, they're sad. One day they're on top of the world. The other day they're ready to kill themselves and end it all. Be careful about living so far in the now. The problem with living in the now and makes you susceptible to forfeiting the now for the not yet. If everything, every value of your life is in what you have right now, then you are forfeiting that which is still yet to come. Jacob knows the weakness of Esau. So he asked them in verse 33, but Jacob said, swear to me first. So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. And you know what he sold it for? For some stew. For some stew. He was tempted by that which was temporary. Esau's only advantage in life was that he was the firstborn over his brother Jacob. And he sold it just like that for a bowl of red stew. I tell you, he was tempted by that which was temporary. And if we are not careful, we can too mortgage our future by living in the now. We'll exchange that which is not yet for something that's only pleasing to the now. I'm a fan of comedians, you all. I love a good comedy. My favorite types of comedy is stand-up comedy. I believe stand-up comedy is an art form. If you would look at the old Greeks' oratory and their studies in oratory and oration skills, I believe comedians are one of the last few outside of preaching that you could say where a person gets up and speaks to a crowd of people using nothing but their words. I'm a fan of stand-up comedians. And I was watching one of my favorite pastimes is watching stand-up comedians. I was watching this Chris Rock special. And Chris Rock talked about all the things in life. He started making fun of us. See, Chris Rock been gone for a little while. He says, I've been busy, y'all. He's a lot much older. Chris Rock started off skinny and frail. You remember the guy from Coming to America? And no, y'all don't know that, y'all. But Chris Rock was now older, and he said, he started opening up on what he was doing in life. And he said, one of the things I've done is that I've gotten divorced. He said, I was married for 16 years. And he talked about he was married for 6. He said, man, that's a long run. And he talked about how that it was getting kind of nasty. And he admitted that the divorce was really a lot on his part because he said he messed up. He cheated. He was out on tour and saw something that he liked, and he went after it. And he's talking about all the things that he had to do since then. He had to go through this nasty custody dispute. And he said that everything after he cheated on his wife, it changed his whole wife around. It made her different. That even now that this custody dispute that he was going through with his children got weird. He's a multimillionaire. But the judge said, we need you to prove, Mr. Rock, that your kids have beds to sleep on. He had to take pictures of the beds that he bought for his children. And then the judge also said, Mr. Rock, we need you to prove that your children have a refrigerator and that there's food in the refrigerator. And he's laying this all out. He says, excuse me, do you know who I am? I'm Chris Rock, not Chris Brown. And he's having to prove that he has enough money to buy food in his refrigerator. And he said that he looked around in that courtroom, and also this, that the person who makes the most money has to pay for the other person's lawyer fees. So his wife had 3 lawyers that he had to pay to take money from him. And he said he looked around in that courtroom and he realized something. He said, everybody who's going to leave here in this courtroom today is going to have more money except me. He realized that 16 years of marriage, all the money that he had to disperse, and even the separation of his children for periods, all that was caused by temporary. By being on tour for a few women here, all tempted by temporary. We look at Esau and say, what a fool, what a goof, giving up his birthright for that which is temporal. But Esau looks at us and say, what a fool, what a goof. How often do we sacrifice that which is permanent for that which is temporal? Esau could look at our generation today and says, you too live in the now. For how many people right now, every day are new video services of some new accident caused by road rage. People fighting on the side of the road, grabbing sticks and getting out of their cars and off motorcycles, fighting because something that could have lasted maybe 30 seconds. And lives forever altered because something temporary. Or even when we're in our mode and our feelings where we say, if she look at me one more time, I'm going to go off. All that is temporary. But I tell you this, I know another man who was tempted by temporary, but he overcame it. He was 40 days fasting in the wilderness, had not eaten one thing, and Satan came up to him and tempted him and said, here, bread, have yourself some bread. And he responded by overcoming temptation and said, man, don't live by bread alone. Everything of your life can't be by what you eat and what you have on your exterior, but man shall now live by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And then they took him on to a high mountain and they said, I'll give you all the kingdoms of this world, and if you would bow down to me. And he said, man, don't you know that, flee from me, Satan, for your world don't even compare to that which is true in kingdom. that this world and all of his riches and glory was nothing to compare, nothing to tempt him who owned everything, who owned eternal riches, eternal glory, eternal significance, and he overcame temptation. They even tempted him. They said, man, save yourself, come down from that cross, come down and save yourself and we'll worship you. But you know what he did? He never said a mumbling word, for he knew that temptation could be overcame. And because he overcame temptation, so can you. Person who we serve, his name is Jesus, and he's the overcomer of all temptation. And because he overcame temptation, if you got him with you, then you can make it through your situation too. There's always a temptation, not just for food, but there's always temptation to live and measure our life by what we are in the now. There's some days where things look like they're as worse as they can be. When things are all geared toward tearing you down. When you seem like bad luck is the only luck that you ever have. And it seems like everybody else is getting blessed. But if you dare measure your life in the now, you can get discouraged and you can get tempted to quit. You can get tempted to give up that which is permanent in exchange for temporary relief on the now. But I tell you, keep on going. You can overcome temptation because he who is within you is an overcomer of all temptation and is greater than he that's in the world. There's always the temptation to quit, to measure our lives in the now. That if you would stop and look at us right now, it seems like we got it as worse as we've ever been. It seems like this situation that we're dealing with is about to take us out, but don't get so caught up in the now that you miss the not yet. God got some not yet for you. That's what faith is. Faith is not always looking at what you can trust with your eyes, but faith is believing and relying on that which he has not yet for you. Don't miss out on your not yet, focusing on the now. For I remember that scripture that says, eyes have not yet seen, neither ears have heard, neither has entered into the hearts of man all the things that God has planned and prepared and stored for those who love him. Don't miss your not yet moment. I know it seems bad now. I know they laughing at you now. I know it look like you ain't got nothing now. But if you got nothing in God, then you got a future. Lift your nothing up before God. Realize that if you got nothing plus God, then you got a future that nobody can touch. No man can put their hands on it. Eyes ain't even fathom what God got in store for you. I know you're crying now, but weeping may endure just for one night. But don't miss your not yet, because joy comes in the morning light. Don't miss your not yet. Focusing on the now. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. I know it's bad now. You may even be broke now. Maybe I'm just preaching for myself, but I know this something that who you are now is not yet who you shall be. It yet does not appear all the things that God has in store for us, for them that loved us and are called according to his purpose. It's bad now, but be not dismayed, because time is filled with swift transitions. Easily as you're down now, you can be up tomorrow. Nothing on earth unmoved can stand. But here's how you make it through that temporary. You build your hopes on that which is eternal. Quit focusing on the now, but build your hopes on that which is not yet, on that which is eternal. And then if you want to make it through, in the meantime, just hold to God's unchanging hand. Trust in him who will not leave you, whatsoever years may bring. And if they talk about you, laugh at you, and if thy earthly friends forsake you, still more closely to him cling. I just said it in a nutshell. I just caught by to tell you, just hold to God's unchanging hand. Hold to his hand. Whose hand? God's unchanging hand. God bless you. Maybe I'm talking to myself right now, and it seems like you ain't got nothing going on. But I tell you, don't trust in it now. Just hold to his hand. God's unchanging hand. Trust him. He will not leave you. I know it's not here today, but some things take a while. I know it's taking long. I know you want to quit. I know it's messed up. I know it seems like they winning, but I read the Psalms, and there were times where people were done down and stuck low, and it looked like the enemy was winning, but they held on. They hold to God's hand, and surely they saw the salvation of the Lord. Surely he will deliver. He will come through if you just hold to his hand. God's unchanging hand.